Hi boys and girls, we are going to do social studies today. Now, before we get our social studies textbooks, we are going to review some vocab words from the last social studies lesson. So, from the last social studies lesson, we had the word region. Everyone say region. Now, region is an area with at least one feature that makes it different from other areas. So, you may live in the Bath region or the Allen County area, and that's one region. Well, that Allen County area and Bath region would be different from, say, living in Cincinnati. Because in Cincinnati, that area, that region, has a lot of tall buildings and skyscrapers, and they have a place where you can go watch the Cincinnati Bengals play, or you could go watch the Cincinnati Reds play. So they have big athletic stadiums for teams that we don't have close in this area. So regions is an area of a community, and they're all different from other areas. Okay? Another word that you learned already is population. Everyone say population. Now population, boys and girls, starts with the letter P. And that helps me remember population starts with P, people starts with the letter P. Okay? Because population is the number of people living in an area. So for example, we might say the population of Lima is 70,000 people. So population is the number of people living in an area. Another word that you learned last time is urban. Everyone say urban. Now urban is a city. Urban is a city. And cities are very busy. Cities have busy streets, many people, tall buildings. Cities have a lot of businesses, okay, and just a lot of people, a lot going on. So urban is the same as a city. A city would be Columbus, Cincinnati. Okay, another word that you read about last time in social studies is harbor. Okay, this word is harbor. Now a harbor is a place where boats and ships could go up to the land. So there's deep water there in a harbor, and it allows ships to get closer to the shore. Okay, that's harbor. And then another word that you read about last time is transportation. Everyone say transportation. Transportation. Transportation is the movement of people and goods. So transportation is going from one location to another. It could be moving people. Okay, a bus moves people from one place to another, or a car. So those are forms of transportation. A boat, a bicycle could move people from one place to another. So transportation is the movement of people and goods. So trains could move people, but they could also move goods. Okay? So movement of things. And in this season, I'm thinking right now, you've seen UPS trucks, FedEx trucks. They move goods from one place to another. So that's a form of transportation. All right, boys and girls, you need to get your social studies textbooks. So pause the video if you need to. Get your social studies textbook. When you get your social studies textbook, we are going to turn to page 52. Page 52 in our social studies textbook. And I think I grabbed the student version here of a social studies textbook. I think maybe I could show mine better. Let's try it this way. Not so much. Okay. Bear with me here. I'm going to use the student textbook. Okay, so your textbook should look just like mine. You're on page 52 in your social studies textbook. And the heading tells us Suburban Communities. So a heading tells you what you'll be reading about. So we'll be reading about suburban communities. You learned about urban communities. Now we'll read about suburban communities. The two new vocab words, we have suburb and we have suburban. Okay, so follow along while I read on page 52. It says many large cities have smaller communities around them. A smaller city or town built near a large city is called a suburb. Maplewood is a suburban community. So we're going to read about a suburban community. It says Maplewood, New Jersey is a suburb of New York City. It is one of hundreds of suburbs around New York City. This suburban region includes communities in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. A suburban region is made up of all the suburbs around a large city. So a suburban area is around a large city, but is not in the large city. For instance, you may have heard of Lima. Lima is a city, but around Lima, you have Bath, you have Perry, you have Lida, you have different places around Lima that are not in Lima. So a suburban region is made up of all the suburbs around a large city. Okay, living in Maplewood. We're on page 53. Look at the top of page 53 where it says living in Maplewood. Years ago, John's parents lived in a New York City apartment. After John was born, they decided to move to Maplewood, just 18 miles away. Now they live in a house with a large yard on a tree-lined street. They have more space for their growing family, so in the suburbs you have more space. Like many suburbs, Maplewood has its own government and its own businesses. John and his family shop at local supermarkets, at small stores in downtown Maplewood, and at shopping centers at the edge of town. They also enjoy the town's parks and movie theater. John attends one of the elementary schools in Maplewood. Every school day his parents drive him to school. Then they ride the train into New York City where they work. So John and his parents live in the suburban area in Maplewood, but his parents go to New York City to work. So you can go back and forth from one community to another. You can go back and forth from an urban community to a suburban community. Okay? This picture here shows boys and girls playing in a backyard. And the caption, the words that go with the picture is the caption. The caption says, people in this suburban community enjoy spending time with their neighbors. So in this picture, they have their own backyard to play in. In the city, in the urban area, they wouldn't have that. Okay? Down here you have John. It says John likes to play soccer in his front yard in Maplewood, New Jersey. So here John has a front yard he can play in. He wouldn't have that if they still lived in the city. If they lived in the New York City apartment, they wouldn't have a yard for John to play in. Okay? So if we move to page 54, you need to turn to page 54. The heading says Urban Connections. So we're going to be reading about the connections between the two communities. Follow along, boys and girls. It says, long ago, communities were often built near railroad stations. As people moved from large communities or large cities to these communities, the communities grew into suburbs. As more and more people began driving cars, more suburbs were built near roads and highways. Today, people in suburbs travel on trains, subways, and highways to nearby cities. Maplewood is its own town, but it is closely connected to New York City. Like John's parents, many people in Maplewood work in New York City. Suburban citizens also travel to urban areas to visit interesting places. Many suburbs have their own theaters and museums, but nearby cities offer people more choices. John and his family visit New York City to see his favorite sports teams compete. So you can live in the suburbs and travel to a city, an urban area to work, or just for entertainment or for more choices. In a bigger city, boys and girls, you have more restaurants, more shopping, more places to visit, bigger museums, maybe go a big sports stadium. Okay, there's a lot more in the city, but you can go travel back and forth from both. Over here it says top 5 ways suburban workers travel to New York City. Okay, because we learned that John's family travels from the suburbs to New York City to work. So the top way to go is by subway, number 2 by train, 3 by car, 4 by bus, and 5 by ferry. And by ferry is a boat. So these are different forms of transportation people in the suburbs use to get to New York City. These are forms of transportation. Okay. Now, the picture at the bottom is a really neat picture. It shows us, caption says, many people drive to and from the suburbs and New York City. Okay, it shows us the people in their cars going back and forth. These people coming towards us at the bottom of the page, they're leaving the city. On this side, they're driving to the city. If you look in the back, it's so cool. If you look in back above those trees, look at all those tall buildings. Those tall buildings called skyscrapers. That shows us the urban area. That shows us the city. So this is an illustration of traveling back and forth. The communities are connected. You can travel from one to the other, go back and forth for many reasons, for jobs, or to go shopping, or to go to bigger hospitals, or to go just for entertainment, bigger theaters, bigger museums, go to more interesting places, to go back and forth. There's a lot more in the city, a lot more choices, but in the suburban area, there's more peace and quiet, and you would have more space of your own. Okay, we have one more page to read. We're going to read page 55. So page 55, follow along. The heading says, Suburbs Grow. Today, more and more people are living in suburban regions. Businesses are moving to the suburbs. This allows them to be closer to people's homes. It also costs less to run a business in the suburbs. Now, this is important. This is important, boys and girls, to know. Okay, if you have a business in the city, you can have it there, but it's very expensive, pay more taxes, costs more to build there. If you have a business and you want to put it in a suburban region, it would cost less to run your business there. And more people are doing that. The second paragraph says, museums and other cultural sites are also being built in the suburbs. In many suburbs, people attend music concerts and other events. Though still connected to cities, these suburbs are their own communities. So they're connected to cities, but suburbs are their own communities. They have their own government, they have their own business, they have their own group of people and communities and neighborhoods. Over here, it shows a picture of some children at a park. It says most suburban communities have parks. Okay, a lot of them do. So there's parks to go to in the suburban communities. Some of you may live in a suburban community. If you live in Woodbriar, if you live in Twin Lakes, if you live in Lost Creek, those are suburban areas. You have your own yard to play in. But you can quickly travel to Lima because it's close to Lima, but it's not in Lima. But those are suburban communities. You have your own yard to play in, your own neighborhood, your own space. Okay, now we have a couple new words that we learned. Today we learned suburban, and a suburban is a region made up of suburbs around a large city. Okay, and then we learned suburb, and suburb is just a small place near a city, a small neighborhood near the city. A smaller city or town that's built near the city is the suburb. So, we have the word suburban. Everyone say suburban, suburban. And inside that word, you're going to see the word suburb. See that? Okay. So a suburban area, you have a quiet neighborhood. You have a neighborhood, which a lot of you probably live in. You have neighbors near you, but your houses aren't touching. You have your own space. You have medium-sized yards to play in that you would not have in the city. Okay, I have a couple pictures here of some suburban communities. We have this one. See how the houses are on the street. They're not touching. They have a yard in the front. That's a suburban area. This one, see how the houses are not touching. The kids have their own yard, but there's several houses in a neighborhood. And then in the background, you can see the urban area. So they're near each other. Okay, the suburban area is a small community near a city. So it's also called the suburbs. It can be called the suburbs or suburban area. They're near the city. It's your own quiet neighborhood near the city. But you have your own space. You have your own yard. Okay, boys and girls? I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching.